Before we begin, I want to warn you that this story contains mature themes. It deals with the challenges of new parenthood, family relationships, and betrayal. If these topics make you uncomfortable, you might want to stop watching now. I've made mistakes before, but this one is different. I can't even begin to forgive myself. Every time I close my eyes, I'm right back there in the middle of it. That party. The music, the noise, the lights. It all felt like some kind of escape. Like maybe, if I just let go for one night, I could forget how much of a mess everything felt. But instead I ruined everything. I can still see Maya, sitting there on the couch, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. We were never close. Family gatherings were always the same. A quick, "Hey, how are you?" And then we drift to our separate corners of the room. She had her life and I had mine. At least that's how it used to be. I don't even know why I went to that party. It's not like I belong there. I've never been the guy who fits in, never been the guy people remember when the night's over. But that night I wanted to be. I wanted to feel like I was part of something. Maybe that's where it all started, where I let things spiral. One drink, then another. A joint passed around. Before I knew it, everything was buzzing, and the world felt far away. Too far away to care about what was right or wrong. Liam Carter. I didn't even know the guy before that night. I don't know him now. But his voice is stuck in my head like a bad song I can't turn off. "You and her," he said. Just like that. Casual. Like he was talking about the weather. I laughed at first. What else was I supposed to do? But then he kept talking, kept pushing until his words felt like they were my own. Like maybe this was normal. Like maybe it didn't matter. But it did. Still does. I can't stop replaying it. The way she smiled. The way she looked at me when she stood up, unsteady on her feet. I should have said something. I should have stopped her, stopped myself. But I didn't. I let it happen. I let Liam's voice drown out everything else. Even the part of me that knew better. And now I'm stuck in this loop, reliving every second, every decision. Every time I see her name in the family group chat, my stomach twists. I haven't talked to her since. I don't even know what I'd say. Sorry. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't erase what I did, what we did. I can't undo it. And I can't face it. So I just sit here trying not to think about it. But thinking about it anyway. How do you move on from something like this? How do you forgive yourself for something unforgivable? I keep telling myself it was the drinking, the weed, the pressure. But none of that matters. None of it changes the fact that I did it. I crossed a line I can't uncross. And now I don't even know who I am anymore. You'd think that by 20 I'd have figured out who I am. But most days I just feel like I'm fumbling through life, trying to keep my head above water. College isn't the escape I thought it would be. If anything, it's just another reminder of how much I don't measure up. Everyone else seems to know what they're doing, what they want, who they are. Me? I feel like I'm stuck in this loop of second-guessing everything. Maybe that's why I went to that party. It wasn't my scene, not really. But I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd find something there. A way to forget for a few hours. A way to feel like I belonged. When I walked in, the music was pounding so loud I could feel it in my chest. People were everywhere. Dancing, laughing, shouting over the noise. I should have turned around and left right then. But I didn't. I saw Maya almost immediately. She was sitting on the edge of a couch, drink in hand, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. We were the same age, but we were never close. Family gatherings were always awkward. A quick, "Hey, how's it going?" And then, nothing. I don't know why I noticed her so much that night. Maybe because she seemed like she belonged there. While I felt like a shadow just moving through the chaos. I remember thinking she looked different. Not in a bad way, just different. More open, maybe. More relaxed. I saw her laugh at something someone said. But even then, something felt off. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She kept shifting like she was trying too hard to seem comfortable. At the time I didn't think much of it. She was just another face in the crowd. And then there was Liam. I didn't know him, but he knew me. Or at least he acted like he did. He had this way of talking like everything he said was the most important thing you'd ever hear. Before I even realized what was happening, he had a drink in my hand. I tried to say no, but he just laughed it off. "Come on," he said. "Loosen up. You'll thank me later." I don't know why I listened to him. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was some kind of project he needed to fix. Or maybe it was me. Maybe I just wanted to stop feeling like the awkward kid who never quite fit in. So I drank. One sip. Then another. It burned, but the warmth that followed made it easier. Then someone passed me a joint. And I took that too. The room started to blur. Faces. Voices. Music. It all melted together. Like I was watching it happen through someone else's eyes. I kept seeing Maya out of the corner of my eye. She was still on the couch, but her smile had grown wider. She laughed louder. She stood up at one point and I saw her stumble just a little. She caught herself against the couch and laughed it off. But something about it stuck with me. I don't know why. She was just having fun, right? Just like everyone else. Then Liam leaned in. His voice cut through the haze. "She's cute, huh?" he said, nodding toward Maya. I froze. I didn't know what to say. "She's my cousin," I said finally, my voice sharper than I intended. Liam just laughed. "So what?" he said. "No one cares." He said it so casually, like it didn't mean anything. But those words, they stuck. No one cares. He said it like it was a fact, like it was permission. And for some reason in that moment, I believed him. If you're still with me, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this. Trust me, there's so much more to uncover. I didn't know it then, but those words were the first crack in everything I thought I believed about myself. I wish I had walked away. I wish I had told him to shut up, to leave me alone. But I didn't. I just stood there holding that stupid red cup like it was an anchor while he kept talking. "You're overthinking it," Liam said, grinning like we were in on some joke I didn't understand. "Look at her. She's into you. You're into her. What's the problem?" His tone was so casual, like he wasn't saying the most messed up thing I'd ever heard. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. Like even my own body knew I was in over my head. "She's drunk," I said, hoping that would end it. But Liam didn't even blink. "So are you. Big deal." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice like we were sharing some big secret. "Listen, man. Opportunities like this don't just fall into your lap. Don't overthink it. You'll regret it if you don't. That's the part that gets me. You'll regret it if you don't." How did I let that sink in? How did I let those words carry more weight than everything I knew was right? I can still feel the fight inside me. That faint voice in the back of my head screaming for me to walk away. But it wasn't loud enough. Or maybe I didn't want to hear it. I kept looking over at Maya. She was still sitting on the couch, but she wasn't steady anymore. Her drink was almost empty. Her smile was gone, replaced by this faraway look, like she wasn't really there. Her head bobbed slightly, as if she was trying to stay awake. I should have seen it for what it was. A sign she'd had too much, that she needed someone to help her. "She's right there." Liam nudged me, snapping me out of my thoughts. "What are you waiting for?" His grin widened, more insistent. I hesitated. My stomach was in knots, my hands clammy. Every part of me wanted to disappear, to just melt into the floor and escape the whole situation. But I didn't. I don't know if it was the alcohol, the weed, or Liam's voice in my ear, but I took a step forward. Then another. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of her. She looked up at me, her eyes glassy and unfocused. "Axel," she said, her voice soft and slurred. She smiled. But it was different this time. Not like before. Not like she was in control. "Hey." I remember trying to say something, but my words came out jumbled, tripping over themselves. She laughed, this quiet, tired laugh, and leaned back against the couch. "You're funny," she said, though I don't think I had even told a joke. I turned to leave. I swear, almost I walked away. My head was screaming at me to get out, to find someone else, anyone else, to take care of her. But then Liam was behind me again, his hand on my shoulder. "You're already here," he said. "Don't overthink it." The next thing I knew, I was helping her stand up. She swayed against me, and I caught her arm to steady her. She didn't resist. Didn't say no. Didn't even ask what we were doing. She just followed my lead like it was the most natural thing in the world. But it wasn't. It wasn't natural. It wasn't right. And I knew that. I knew it every single step of the way. We ended up in one of the bedrooms. I don't even remember walking there. It's all a blur. Flashes of light from the hallway. The muffled sound of music. Her weight against my arm. By the time the door closed behind us, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her head dropping slightly. "I'm tired," she mumbled. And for a second I thought she might fall asleep right there. I should have let her. I should have walked out, shut the door behind me and never looked back. But I didn't. I sat down next to her. She turned to me, her face so close I could smell the faint scent of alcohol on her breath. She smiled again. But it wasn't the same as before. It wasn't real. None of it was real. And I still went through with it. The details from then on, they're fragmented. Like pieces of a puzzle that don't fit together. She laughed, quiet and distant. The feel of her hand brushing against mine. The way my head felt heavy, like it wasn't even part of my body. And then, the silence. The heavy, crushing silence that followed. I didn't finish. I couldn't. Something in me finally screamed loud enough to stop. And I got up and left. Without saying a word. I didn't even look back at her. I just walked out. Down the hall. Out the door. And I've been carrying that night with me ever since. I should have left sooner. I should have walked out the second we stepped into that room. But I didn't. I sat there. Frozen. As if my body wasn't my own. Every nerve in me screamed to stop, to get up, to fix this before it was too late. But I didn't listen. I just let the moment carry me, like I was watching it happen from somewhere far away. She was quiet. Too quiet. Maya slumped against the bed frame, her head tilted back, her eyes half closed. She wasn't there. Not really. And I don't know why I didn't stop. I can't stop asking myself that. Why didn't I stop? The air in the room felt heavy, pressing down on my chest. I couldn't breathe. Every move I made felt wrong, like I was breaking something delicate. But I kept going. Even as my stomach churned. Even as my hands shook. I kept going. Even though every second felt like I was sinking deeper into something I'd never get out of. And then just like that, it hit me. This isn't me. This isn't who I want to be. The realization came out of nowhere. Sharp and sudden. Cutting through the haze in my head. I pulled away. Stood up. And for a second I just stood there staring at her. She didn't say anything. She didn't even move. She just sat there, her eyes unfocused, like she wasn't really seeing me. I don't know what I expected her to do. Maybe yell at me. Maybe tell me to leave. But she didn't do any of that. She just looked at me with this strange, vacant expression. Like none of it was real to her. That's when I knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't face her. I couldn't face myself. So I left. The hallway felt longer than it should have. Each step echoed, even though the music from the party was still pounding somewhere in the distance. My legs felt heavy, dragging me down with every step. I didn't look at anyone as I passed. I didn't even know if anyone saw me. I pushed open the front door, and the cool night air hit me like a slap. I stood there for a second trying to catch my breath. But it felt like the world was closing in. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like it was going to explode. What have I done? I whispered it, barely audible over the blood rushing in my ears. And then I said it again. And again. Like some kind of mantra. What have I done? And no matter how far I walked, I couldn't escape the weight pressing down on. The first time I skipped a family gathering, no one noticed. Or at least no one said anything. But the second time my mom called me out on it. You can't just disappear, she said. I mumbled something about school, about being busy. She didn't push, but I could tell she didn't believe me. But I couldn't be there. I couldn't sit in that house, surrounded by people pretending everything was fine. Because for me nothing was fine. The memory clung to me like a second skin. The way Maya looked when I left. The silence in the room as I closed the door behind me. It was like a loop I couldn't escape. No matter how much I wanted to. Sometimes I'd think about calling her. About texting her. Just to see if she was okay. But what would I even say? Hey Maya. Remember that night I ruined everything? No. I couldn't do it. So I stayed silent. And so did she. That silence was the worst part. The not knowing. Did she remember? Did she regret it? Did she hate me? I told myself that no news was good news. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Like any second someone would figure it out, and my entire life would come crashing down. Family gatherings started feeling like minefields. The few times I forced myself to go, I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder, waiting for Maya to show up. When she did, I couldn't breathe. I'd catch glimpses of her across the room, laughing, talking, acting like everything was fine. She never looked at me. Not once. If she knew, if she remembered, she didn't show it. Once I overheard her talking to my mom. She sounded normal. Like she always did. Like nothing had happened. Part of me wanted to believe that was true. That she didn't remember. Or didn't care. But another part of me, the part that wouldn't shut up, kept asking, what if she's pretending? What if she's just waiting for the right moment to say something? Every smile from her felt like a dagger. Every laugh felt like it was aimed at me. I couldn't even sit at the same table without feeling like everyone could see right through me. My hands would shake whenever someone mentioned her name. My stomach twisted when she walked into the room. I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. The worst was when my dad asked about her. One night, we were sitting in the living room, just the two of us, when he said, "You and Maya used to get along, right? I don't see you two talk much anymore." I froze. My throat felt like it was closing up. I managed to mumble something about being busy, but I could feel his eyes on me. Like he didn't believe me. Like he knew. Most nights I didn't sleep. It sat on my chest like a weight, pressing down harder and harder until it felt like I couldn't breathe. I started thinking about how easy it would be to just disappear. To make it all go away. I thought about writing a note. But what would I even say? That I was sorry? Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't undo what I did. But I couldn't do that either. As much as I hated myself, as much as I wanted to disappear, I couldn't do that to my parents, to my friends. So instead, I just sat in my room night after night, hoping that someday, somehow it would stop hurting. That someday, I'd find a way to live with what I'd done. Months passed. Months of silence. Of avoidance. Of pretending. I thought I could keep it up forever. Just stay away. Keep my head down. And maybe eventually it would all fade into the background. But life doesn't work like that. It finds ways to corner you. No matter how fast or far you run. The family event wasn't optional. I had already skipped too many, and my mom wasn't letting me out of this one. "We'll all be there," she said. Which of course meant Maya too. I could already feel the walls closing in as we pulled up to the house. My stomach was in knots. My palms were sweating. I kept telling myself I could get through it. Just a few hours. And then I'd be gone. But the second I walked in and saw her across the room, all my false confidence shattered. She looked fine. Normal. Laughing with someone near the kitchen. Holding a plate of food like nothing had ever happened. But then, her eyes met mine. Just for a second. And something shifted. Her smile faltered. It was quick, so quick I almost missed it. But it was there. And suddenly I couldn't breathe. I spent the rest of the evening avoiding her. Weaving through conversations. Pretending to care about whatever small talk people threw my way. But I could feel her. Even when I wasn't looking at her, I could feel her presence. Like a shadow hanging over me. I don't know why I thought I could get away with it. Maybe I was just desperate to believe I could. But as the night went on, I knew it was only a matter of time. Sure enough, it happened. In the backyard. I had stepped outside for some air, hoping to clear my head, when I heard her voice behind me. Axel. Just my name. Soft. Almost hesitant. I froze. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to face her. But I didn't have a choice. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed over her chest, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she broke it. "We need to talk," she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, even though my body screamed at me to run. She gestured toward the side of the house, away from the noise of the party. And I followed. My legs felt like lead with every step. By the time we stopped, I thought I might collapse under the weight of it all. "I remember some of it," she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Not everything, but enough." She paused, looked down at the ground, then back up at me. "Do you?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Yeah," I said. My voice cracked. And I hated how weak I sounded. I remember. For a second I thought she was going to yell. To tell me I was a horrible person. That she hated me. But she didn't. She just sighed. Leaning back against the wall, her gaze distant. I was in a bad place that night, she said. I drank too much. I wasn't thinking straight. She hesitated. Then. But I don't blame you, Axel. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. How can you say that? I asked, my voice rising. You should blame me. It was my fault. I should have stopped. Maybe, she said. Her tone was calm. Almost sad. But it wasn't just you. We were both there. We both made choices. I'm not saying it was okay, it wasn't. But blaming each other isn't going to fix anything. I stared at Maya, not knowing what to say. For months I had carried the weight of that night alone, convinced that I was the only one who felt this way. But now, hearing her say it didn't make it better. But it made it feel less like a prison. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. Do you think we can move on? I asked after a long silence. The words felt fragile, like they might break if I said them too loudly. From this? From everything. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Not anger. Not resentment. Just understanding. I don't know, she said honestly. But I think we can try. Those words stayed with me. They still do. Because even though they didn't erase what happened, they gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I didn't start therapy because I thought it would fix me. I started because I didn't know what else to do. After that conversation with Maya, it became clear that ignoring what happened wasn't going to make it go away. If I wanted to move forward, I had to face it. Face myself. The first session was brutal. Sitting across from someone saying out loud what I had done, what I felt. It was like ripping open a wound I had spent so long trying to keep hidden. I wanted to run. To never go back. But something about finally speaking the words, about hearing them outside of my own head, made it feel a little less unbearable. Like I wasn't trapped in this endless loop anymore. I started to learn things about myself. Things I had spent years trying to ignore. How much I cared about what people thought of me. How hard I tried to fit in, even at the cost of my own values. How I let other people's voices drown out my own. And slowly I started to piece together how I had gotten to that night. How I had let myself make the worst decision of my life. Maya and I didn't talk much after that family gathering. Not right away at least. But we didn't avoid each other either. It was like the air between us had shifted. Lighter maybe. Less charged. A few weeks later she sent me a text. Just something simple. How are you? I stared at it for a long time before replying. Better, I wrote back. Trying. And I meant it. Therapy didn't fix everything overnight. It didn't erase the guilt. It didn't make the memories go away. But it helped me start to see the difference between hating myself and holding myself accountable. I started to understand that while I couldn't undo the past, I could choose what kind of person I wanted to be moving forward. One day my therapist asked me what I would say to someone in my position. Someone who had made a terrible mistake and didn't know how to move on. I didn't have an answer right away. But now I think I do. I tell them, you can't change the past. You can't undo what's been done. But you can own it. You can take responsibility for it. And you can learn from it. And even though it's hard, harder than anything you've ever done, you can try to be better. Not perfect. Just better. I'm still trying. I don't know if I'll ever stop. But what I do know is that I'm not the same person I was that night. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm facing it. One step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. We can't change the past. But we can try to be better moving forward. Either way, I want to hear what you think. Tell me, what would you do if your world fell apart like mine did? How would you move forward? Let me know in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.